Harry, what's going on?
Anthony.
Season 2, episode 6. Here we come.
6. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We're getting after it.
Doing it.
We're doing the things.
Dude, your studio is nice and warm today. I appreciate
I forgot to turn the heat down. So
Feels
now I've
good.
got big giant sweat rings.
You always have sweat rings.
So you're weird.
Did your Tesla get vandalized yet?
Can we just do like a public safety announcement? Or no, what do they call those? Those like commercials that they do like what do they call those?
I don't know. What are you
PSAs.
talking about?
They call them PSAs, but they're not public safety announcements. Or is that what they are?
Or public service announcement?
Public service announcements. I'm getting the safety and service mixed
All
up
right.
there. But does no one understand that Teslas have cameras all around them?
I know.
These people are morons.
Yeah, a shooting was actually caught in Lancaster a couple years ago.
That's
was
awesome.
Caught on part of it was caught on the Tesla.
Yeah, I don't understand these. I do not understand. Did you see the one where the guy literally goes up to a Tesla, digs in his rear end, and then smears his fingers on the Tesla?
That's gross.
I'm like,
That's nasty.
that's a mental health. You have mental health problems.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing that's
Like I thought Teslas was like everybody loves Tesla because they're
Right.
green, right? Like they're
green. And the one Tesla dealership where they lit a bunch of Teslas on fire. I guess those were climate people. And I'm like, I thought you guys liked Tesla.
so they're lighting them on fire, which creates even more problems with the environment because it's probably not good fire. You know what I mean? It's like
No,
got
it's
all the
filled with, like,
plastics and metals
battery
and battery stuff. I don't know, dude.
I'm very confused. I mean, Tesla, was your everything. You want everything to be electric.
Yeah.
Because fossil fuels have to go away.
Yeah.
It's bad for the environment. But now you're lighting the cars on fire because Elon is with Trump.
Yeah. It's crazy, dude.
It's crazy.
It's mind-boggling. It is a mental health problem.
Yeah, if
Actually
you're-
not. It's a criminal problem.
It
You're
is
a criminal.
It is a criminal problem. It's just wild to me that you don't understand. You would think after the first couple, you'd be like, you know what? There's cameras on these cars.
I know.
I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
And they keep doing it.
Yeah.
And the one of my favorites too, besides the guy, digging in his rear end and smearing on the car, I was like, that's wild. There was one where a guy keyed the Tesla. So the camera caught him keying the Tesla, and then another camera on the Tesla caught him going into his apartment with his address clearly marked on the door.
What an idiot.
So,
No, that's hilarious.
but
Yeah, it's not a good time to be a Tesla owner, apparently.
yeah. So and the Sentry mode on them, like anybody can set. That's the Sentry mode that turns on all these cameras around it. And I guess Tesla is putting the Sentry mode on all their cars in every dealership to try to curb the problem. But I don't know.
Here's how you curb the problem. You
crush.
You crush them.
Well, and I think some people were arrested for lighting the cars at the dealership. I think they charged them with like some
Domestic
sort of terrorism type thing, because it's
It's
They
not
charge
like
him-
it's not like you're mad at your boyfriend because he's kissing another girl, so you go and key his car. It's not like that kind of thing. It's literally going after someone who the government's. And that's what's crazy. Like these aren't people affiliated with Donald Trump, Tesla owners necessarily.
no,
Like just
in
because you
fact-
drive a Tesla doesn't mean you're pro-Trump.
In fact,
It probably is opposite of that.
Right.
But like, it's wild, man.
yeah, what's crazy is you can look at someone driving a Tesla and start to make determinations about where they land in the political atmosphere. I mean, you
Okay.
really. I mean,
I don't know that to be true,
I'm
but
overgeneralizing.
Okay.
But just like right now in our culture, if you see someone flying the American flag
Yeah.
at their property, you're like, oh, they're probably conservative,
right. Or if they have a POW
which is
flag,
wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be.
If you have a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, for sure, you're definitely conservative. Yeah, I get it.
So it used to be you see someone driving around Tesla and generally be like, they're probably a little more liberal leaning, save the environment type people. But now, you're save the environment people are burning Teslas.
I know.
It's like, it's crazy to me that it, again, kind of going back to our last episode where we were talking about everything's so polarized, where if you are a part of one camp, you have to hate everything in the
pure
other camp.
hatred, not just like, I don't like this guy.
I disagree with you.
Right.
No, I'm going to burn your stuff. I'm going to burn it to the ground.
It's wild.
So the other thing, one of our
which is the Nazi way to handle problems.
Right.
You know,
while they call the other side
Nazis. That's just crazy. Yeah.
At one of our patrons reached out and said, "You guys, we need to talk about the swatting stuff too."
Oh,
so
swatting.
So here's the interesting thing: is
that back in the news?
Well, it's a big thing right now on accounts I'm following on X and everything.
I gotcha.
So the question is, are there more swatting incidents actually happening, or is it just getting more press from the conservative side of things? It appears we can, be, manipulated, but it appears that there's a lot more swatting incidents happening against people with conservative views, large conservative followings.
Okay.
And so a lot of this is being put out on X, people who have large conservative followings, whether it be podcasts, their pundits, whatever, have, video at their houses of the police showing up for these swatting incidents. So, and just, I guess maybe we should break down what a swatting incident is.
Thankfully, we haven't been swatted yet. I guess we're not that big.
We're not big enough yet.
Well, let's make it happen.
But just to break down like what it is, basically, it's someone either by phone or by
like a
by
tip,
the internet, basically contacting the police and saying, "Hey, there is a very serious criminal situation happening at this residence." So doxing is involved. So people are getting and knowing the addresses of conservatives or of anyone. And then they use that address to make a report of like a hostage situation or a murder in progress or something like that. And so what happens then is a heavy police response, sometimes with SWAT team,
which is where the name comes from.
Special weapons and tactics, and then swatting, yes, and to respond. So it's a very dangerous situation because you would then have unsuspecting homeowners all of a sudden with people on their property who they don't initially know who it is, who may be retrieving a weapon themselves, and then you have them interacting with the police and the police giving commands, and it's just, it can be very chaotic and very dangerous. And so it appears that it's happening with a greater degree of occurrence to people who are conservatives and have large followings.
Well, I mean, it does seem like conservatives aren't into this stuff.
Right.
Like they're not into finding someone's car and destroying it just because it's a Prius. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just not happening. And conservatives just want to live their lives and be left alone. That seems to be the case.
Yeah.
And where extreme liberal side wants to attack conservatives is what it seems like.
It does seem,
or cause chaos.
Right. It does seem like the liberal side is a lot more unhinged than the conservative side. Of course, you're going to have radicals on either end, but it does seem that the left is much more radicalized. I mean, to the point where people in their own party are being like, "You people are out of control."
Right.
Like I can't even align myself any longer with the Democratic Party because you guys lost your minds.
You're so unhinged.
You're so unhinged with this stuff. So, but yeah, the swatting stuff, it does appear that it's happening more and more. I don't know if it actually is, but it's something that is very hard to track too. So there's a lot of pushback. Like what is the government doing to get these people? Well, it's between VPNs. A lot of it's coming from overseas. It's very hard to track this.
Because they're not calling 911 in general. They're not calling 911 because when you call 911, it gets transferred based on the phone system. So it's some type of like internet-based tip that goes to the local police, or you call the local police number.
Right. And it's even happening through game systems. Like people are playing games and then someone, puts out, "Hey, this location, this is going on, and then the person playing the game sees the message and calls 911 and says, so it's happening. Spoofed phone numbers. People are using spoofed phone numbers.
Yeah.
AI now.
Oh, yeah.
So all this stuff does make it difficult for law enforcement to track down where it came from.
And it's super time consuming. I mean, you got to get subpoenas and
so it's definitely happening. It happens locally.
How would you prevent yourself from? How would you lessen the danger if you were a conservative, if you're a homeowner who potentially might get swatted?
Well, I think having cameras set up, a lot of these people are big enough and look like they live at very nice residences, have cameras set up. So that's helpful. I think one of the things you can do too is as soon as you see some sort of activity on your property and you don't know what it is, or even if you do know that, hey, why is law enforcement on my property? Call 911 yourself.
Right.
And get on the phone and get that communication going with dispatchers about, hey, I have law enforcement on my property. I don't know what's going on. I didn't call for them, and try to start kind of de-escalating
everything, your favorite word.
And bringing everything down.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if law enforcement's on your property and they start giving command, I mean, you just have to do what they're telling you to do, and it'll get sorted out at the end. The worst thing you can do is not do what they're telling you to do.
Have a gun in your hand and open the door. That's
right.
A bad idea.
They have no idea they're going based on information they're being given. And for law enforcement, guys in law enforcement, I think the best thing you do is slow down.
Yeah.
Take a breath, observe, I'm a firm believer, and this isn't always true, but usually when you get calls like this, you can tell pretty quickly whether or not it's legitimate or it's not legitimate. Not all the time.
Right.
But you start getting more calls about the same thing. Or when you get there, you have certain things that you're seeing, certain red flags that would suggest that this is actually occurring.
Right.
So, there's certain things. I think sometimes law enforcement, we get that call, our blood pressure spikes, we go, and we're just moving too fast and we're not slowing down and taking a breath. And especially now with as common as it is, I think it's important for us to slow down a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. And the reality is police don't generally stop a violent act like right away. You know what I mean? Like
right.
It's almost always reactive.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you're not going to be the hero that stops this mass shooting. Most likely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there are times it happens, but like in general, so slow down.
Yeah. But you can't go too slow.
That's true.
You can't go too slow. Like, there's a
take into cues and figure it out.
Yeah. You gotta
gather information as you're going.
You gotta work through it. But yeah. So anyways, a lot of
what are you talking about?
Well, one of our patrons reached out and asked about it, and I was like, well, hey,
let's chat about it.
That's
what we're here for.
Did you see the video I sent you? The reel I sent you out of Toronto with the cop car?
From the TikTok. Dude, are you on TikTok yet? Have you put us on TikTok?
No, I'm not on TikTok.
I think we got to get on TikTok.
I'm not getting on TikTok.
Why? Because it's just one more thing.
China.
Nah, man,
Can
it get bought now?
I don't know. I'm not going on TikTok.
Why?
Because I don't want to.
All right.
You go on TikTok.
I'm not going on
TikTok. You put us on TikTok.
No, I don't spend time on social media.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do. I spend enough time on social media. All right.
So TikTok, the Toronto video from TikTok. All right, break it down. This was hilarious, dude.
Okay.
Are you going to put the link in the...
Yeah, I'll put the link in.
Because it's funny. It's funny.
On YouTube, this is why you need to subscribe to us on YouTube, because I'll throw the video in to our YouTube video.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay.
I'm making promises here, but I'm going to throw the video into our YouTube episode.
Okay.
So this is why you need to subscribe to YouTube, because if you're just listening to us on audio, it's good, but YouTube is better because now you can see our faces. I'm throwing pictures and videos in there.
Yeah, you're doing the stuff.
It's very professional.
Dude,
no, it's not.
Your editing abilities are getting great.
Every time I whisper on these episodes, I think of President Biden. I'm like, why am I whispering like Biden?
Oh.
So if you see me whispering,
be annoyed.
Yeah.
All right.
Take me out. Yeah. So this.
How old is this video?
I think it's older.
It just popped
and
up
resurfaced.
Again. Okay.
and it's been getting a lot of playtime. So it's some dude, he's pulling up to a cop car in Toronto.
Like
so
a marked car.
A marked police car
Okay.
in Toronto, Canada, our dear friends in Canada.
Yeah, the 52nd state.
Who hate us now. It's like tariffs.
Tariffs. Oh,
This does make me want to tariff Canada. So he's pulling up to this cop car, and as he's pulling up, the back of the cop car has the trans flag on it.
Okay.
And then it has like
that's the pink one with the blue.
Pink and blue, yeah. And then it has the LGBTQ on the side of it, written on the side of it, and then it has the pride flag, and it's a marked police car.
Wow.
So what you can't see, and there's a longer video out there which I found just last evening. What you can't see is in the front seat is a male in a wig, like dressed as a woman in the front passenger seat.
Okay.
Allegedly. It's hard to see, but
okay.
But in the longer video, the guy who made it points out that there's a guy dressed as a woman in the front passenger seat, and you can see like a little bit of his blonde wig and everything. So, and it appears he refers to the sergeant. So I think a sergeant is driving the car.
Okay.
And he's like, are you guys cops?
Like he beeps the horn.
He beeps the horn. They roll down the window. Yeah. He's like, are you guys cops, or do you just identify as cops?
A transgender cop car. Look at that. Are you guys cops, or are you just identifying?
I was like, send that to Gary.
That's super funny. Yeah, that's hilarious.
And then there is the longer version shows a conversation between them. One of the people in the car asks this guy what he's doing, and it's like it doesn't matter what I'm doing. Like,
like they asked the guy recording.
Yeah,
the
what
officers,
are you doing?
What are you doing? Oh, okay.
And then he refers to the driver as a sergeant, and So again, I've talked about this. I don't know if we've ever talked about it. Would you, if you were still a cop on the street and you worked for a department like that, would you drive a car like that?
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
100% not.
No. I wouldn't drive I think, I don't know, like any advertising of political, like, I wouldn't drive a car that was like smoked up in Republican or Democrat,
right?
Like logos and stuff.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't. If it was a cop car,
I
just wouldn't. Like police should be like, you're an officer. Like, you're crush evil, praise good. Like, that's all you do. So like, why are we affiliating ourselves with
an ideology?
Yeah, different views.
Yeah,
we shouldn't be.
Right. Because what's so interesting to me is that you and I sometimes talk about this podcast, and we share our personal views on it.
Yeah.
A lot of it based on our faith,
right?
And
all of it.
Yeah, all of it based on our faith and our relationships with Christ. But we're very careful to not associate ourselves with our agencies,
because we don't speak for them.
We don't speak for them. Like, this is something that we engage in on our own time, away from our agencies, and we take a lot of care not to associate ourselves with those agencies.
Yeah.
And
rightly so.
And rightly so.
Yeah.
So and then you flip it and you see a car like this, and a department openly aligning themselves with something that a lot of people disagree with. And
actually majority.
Yeah. And what does that say to the general public? Like, how is that showing an unbiased and equal justice?
Yeah, a neutral standing.
Yes. Yeah. To the public. And it's not, because it's showing that, hey, our department aligns with this belief system. We support it. Not only do we support it, we praise it. We promote it on the side of our police cars. And I've said in other episodes, again, I don't know that you and I personally have ever talked about it, but is that promotion happening for anything that would be on the conservative side? Well, it's not. It's only happening on one side. And so
there's no pro-life police cars out there.
Yeah. There's no pro-faith or
pro-family
or pro-marriage.
Right.
anything like that is not being promoted, but this is. And I just find it, I could. What's interesting is it, as a police officer on that agency, if you were refused to be in that car, you probably would get disciplined.
Yeah.
Probably.
Potentially.
Who's going to volunteer for that?
Now, a good leader would ask for a volunteer if you're going to do it.
Right.
You're going to find
a good leader would say, we're not doing that.
I agree. Yeah.
And here's the thing. In my career, I've worked with people that are a part of the LGBTQ community. They were brother, sister officers. I had no problem working with them. I didn't agree with their decisions as a Christian. I didn't agree with their lifestyle, but that didn't cause me to be like, I'm not working with this person, or I'm not backing this person up, or I'm not doing this job with this person. Not at all. Just as it didn't affect my ability to go to calls that involved people that were part of the LGBT community and do what I needed to do and protect them and treat them as I should and handle their calls for service as I should.
Right.
But this is different. This is promoting it. Yeah. This is getting behind it. This is pushing it. This is making an advertisement for it. This is shoving it down people's throats. And it does not show a level of
So some people would say it's not kind for that guy who is filming it to kind of make fun of it or for us to laugh at it.
I think it's hilarious.
It is hilarious. And there's one thing to put your head in the sand and just hope things go away. There's another thing to push back a little bit. And I think there are times to push back.
Well, and I think it also, he was pointing out the trans aspect of the car.
Yeah, for sure.
He was like, "Oh, look, we have a trans cop car here." So he's pointing out the hypocrisy of it. When the cop rolls down the window, "Hey, are you guys cops, or do you just identify as cops?"
Right.
I mean, that's hilarious.
So he's using humor to push back.
He's using humor to push back and say, "Do you guys realize how ridiculous this is?"
A lot of times, especially Christians, want to put their heads in the sand for almost everything that they view as against the Word of God or against their faith or against Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been we live in an area that's super put your head in the sand. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just kind of bury in and just
bunker down,
not push back, not try to advance truth. So I like it. I think it's funny.
I think it's hilarious.
Some people might be offended that you even laugh at something like that, but even as a believer, as a Christian, that you would make fun of something like that or laugh at that. And I say we're trying to push back.
Yeah, I mean, a car like that is not going to invoke confidence in your police department. A car like that causes you to go, is my police department dedicated to law enforcement or pushing agendas?
Political agendas, yeah.
Yeah. And this goes all the way back to 2020 when we were dealing with BLM and the riots and the protests, and we were being told to stand down, the whole country.
Or go take a knee.
Yeah. Go
with
take
everybody,
a knee. Yeah. This whole idea then, and I was asking these questions now. I'm like, wait a second. So we're not going to confront criminal activity because of the ideological political stance that these people are taking. Would we do the same thing if a pro-life group came in and was
acting
engaging in the same type of behavior? Would we be doing the same thing?
Yeah. And we wouldn't.
And we wouldn't.
Right.
And so then that just, it completely erodes the trust of the public.
I agree.
My police department isn't going to stand up to criminal activity when it's backed by this side, this ideology, this political point of view, but they will crack down on it. I mean, that's the whole thing. We did that whole episode on the Jesus t-shirt in the mall. People who are sidewalk preaching, who are getting approached by the police, especially in Europe right now.
Oh yeah.
The free speech of
say the wrong thing or go to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not right.
Right.
That means then that the law enforcement, the police, are being used as an arm to push an agenda, not to enforce the law, but to push an agenda. So when I see like a car like that, I want to vomit. I'm like, why is that on a car? Why in the world would we be putting that on the police car?
Yeah.
And since the beginning of law enforcement, we have never pushed any type of agenda on the side of a police car.
Even like the Ukraine flag, right?
Yeah.
Like putting that on a police car, putting anything on a police car other than police, like I don't even like the thin blue line. Like I don't even like that on a car.
Okay.
I just don't.
I mean, but that stands for police though.
Right. But it has a
us against them type little thing.
And
like
it's us and us. Like it's us. Like it's the community policing itself.
Right.
You know, it's just the government.
Yeah. I don't mind the thin blue line because that just means law enforcement. But
it means that to you. What it does mean, it means, you know, it means other things to other people.
Right.
It's
I've never really thought about it. I'm just not a big thin blue line guy, you know,
silly.
Wearing shirts and stickers and tags. I always thought whenever I saw a guy, and this isn't always, again, this is overgeneralization, but whenever I saw an officer with like tons of like things on his backpack, or he's always wearing like thin blue line shirts or, you know, stickers and got stuff all over his car, coming into work with his backpack with all kinds of flags and stickers and sayings on it. Not always, but a lot of times that cop wasn't that great. he loved to let people know he was a cop, but he wasn't that great at his job. So overgeneralization, but sometimes it was true. You're like, you know, this guy's very vocal about what he does.
Maybe sometime we should break down like some of the funny police like phrases.
Oh my word.
That'd be funny.
Yeah, that would be.
That we just make fun of every single one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, quick update on Derek Dim. That is the son of Eric Dim. I'm going to put a link in our episode notes for the GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Derek's still fighting.
Good.
So really encourage you to support the family as Derek continues to fight this cancer diagnosis.
Did he make it back to New York yet?
I don't think they're in New York.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure where they're at, but he as far as I know, Derek, you know, well, yes, Derek's still fighting. The GoFundMe's still up, so I'll put that link in our show notes, in the episode notes. So I wanted to put that out there again. Huge update on the Brad Lunsford case.
Yeah.
Officer Brad Lunsford. Actually, as we're recording, there is a hearing happening right now or right around this time.
In Las Cruces, right?
In Las Cruces, New Mexico. So just a quick reminder, Officer Brad Lunsford was the guy who responded to a theft. Him and another officer get in a scuffle with a male suspect. That male suspect takes the taser of the one officer. Officer Lunsford shoots and kills the suspect. I'm not going to get into all the details of the case again. It was a justified shooting. And I say justified shooting. His department cleared him. He was back on the job. He was working. As a police officer, he had been cleared and he was working. And nearly a year later, the AG came in and charged him with manslaughter. A Soros-funded AG charged him with manslaughter. He had his trial. He was found guilty, which you and I were shocked about. I was
absolutely shocked. Yeah,
shocked because it was clear cut, justified use of force, and found guilty. And he's been awaiting sentencing, but he's been in prison since February, awaiting his sentencing. So, what has come out since then are two motions that his defense team is making, and that hearing for those motions is on.
I heard there was a third also.
Oh, if there was a third motion, I didn't even see that one. So I just wanted to touch on those motions. That the two that I saw. What did the third?
The third one was like some expert testimony that was not allowed in, and also his medical. The guy who got killed, his medical, like what was in his blood, which was methamphetamine and amphetamines.
Okay.
Which actually does belong in the case.
100%.
100% belongs in there.
Yeah.
Which means he's stronger. He's not thinking right.
I cannot.
He's more dangerous because he's high.
The miscarriage of justice in this case is shocking to me. And I just saw an interview with Brad's wife, Lacey, right before we started this episode. And they have 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
And those, like, one of their boys is waking up in the middle of the night, crying, asking for dad. Like, their dad did his job.
Right.
Went to work. Did not go to work with a plan to be involved in a deadly force situation. Went to a minor theft call and ended up in a fight for his life.
Right.
And now he's in jail. And that's why these motions just cast even more light on the miscarriage of justice that happened. The first motion they made was the fact that there were jurors, 2 regular jurors in the case that had been assigned to the case as regular jurors. And then at the end, after sitting through the whole trial, at the end, we're told, no, you're alternate jurors and could not be in the room to decide the verdict.
Right.
And
it's my understanding there was no reason given.
Right.
So the jurors who were picked by both sides that the judge agreed to as the primary jurors were removed by the court.
Right.
And 2 alternates were put in. So the alternates also heard the whole trial.
Right.
But normally, unless a juror makes a mistake and does something they're not supposed to do,
or is sick, or
Right.
a family emergency, like something comes. That's why you have an alternate,
right?
To step in if
and they
need
had
to
4
step in.
alternates, right?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if they had 4 or 2.
Wow.
But either way, the one of the jurors who was a regular juror was told at the end when they were trying to determine the verdict that you're an alternate and could not sit in those proceedings. That juror reached out to the defense team and gave a sworn affidavit stating that he or she was convinced that Officer Lunsford was innocent and had acted in self-defense, and no one would have swayed her to decide otherwise.
Which means it would have been a not guilty or a hung jury.
At the very least, it would have been a hung jury just based on the numbers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you have one who's not willing to change their mind,
right,
it's a hung jury. And it would either they'd have to go through trial again, or the prosecution says, yeah, we're done.
Right.
Right.
So that was the first motion. So I'm like, wow, that is wild. Like, why did that even happen? How did that happen? And for sure, maybe it was some sort of weird clerical error that.
Okay, Anthony.
It can happen. I'm not going to sit here and say like it was a purposeful act to try to get the jury to reach a certain verdict.
Sure.
It's odd.
Maybe there was a reason.
Maybe, yeah.
And that's what the defense team is now asking for. What's the reason?
Right.
Or we want a new trial because of this.
Well, and reading the motion, the defense team is laying out like this should not have happened.
Right. Something wrong.
Something wrong happened.
Right.
The rules of criminal procedure were not followed in this case, and therefore you put a juror in there that shouldn't have been deciding the verdict as an alternate, and you made a regular juror an alternate, which affected the outcome of the case.
Right.
So that's the first motion. The second motion is even crazier.
Yeah, this one was wild.
The second motion is linked to the 4-person. So the motion they're making is that the 4-person of the jury actually was biased and did not answer questions honestly or correctly during voir dire, which is how it's a term for picking the jury.
Yeah, so basically the jury room's full of jurors, potential jurors. The defense, that there's a questionnaire given to them before, and they fill out the questionnaire, like they write it out. Both teams review it, look at the questions, and then they get the opportunity to ask questions of the jurors, and the jurors are supposed to answer honestly.
Right.
And then they can strike them for cause. They can both agree that they shouldn't be on the jury. And so they can pick the jury.
Right.
And it's supposed to be fair.
And the rules of criminal procedure force the people that are involved, the jurors that are involved in voir dire, to answer correctly. They are required by law to answer truthfully and correctly,
Right.
so that a fair trial can be had. So they'll ask questions about any biasness. So, like, for instance, if my wife or your wife was pulled for jury, and they'd be like, would you have trouble believing a suspect over a police officer? They would be, yes, my husband is a police officer. So they have a certain level of bias towards law enforcement, and they would be struck from the jury.
They wouldn't be allowed.
There's no way the wife of a police officer would ever be allowed on a jury. Just as if I was called for jury duty, I'm never going to be on a jury.
Right.
Because whether I like it or not, like, it's going to be very hard for me to not be biased in that decision, just because I do the job of law enforcement. I know how things work, and I
Or they'll ask, have you heard about this case?
Right.
Do you have any preconceived notions about the case based on journalism, media posts, anything like that? So they'll ask those type of questions also.
So this juror who became the foreperson of the jury,
who's the person who speaks, he or she is the person who talks to the judge on behalf of the jury.
Right.
So, like, if the jury has a question, or one person in the jury has a question, the foreperson gives that question to the judge communicates with the jury through that person. So they're like the mediator between the court and the jurors.
Right.
Yeah.
They speak for the jury, basically.
They do.
They lead the
discussion, the deliberation.
This juror who became the foreperson did not disclose obvious feelings of bias against the police, failed to disclose that he or she was familiar with the case, even though they were asked, and disclosed. So defense came in with receipts and said this juror had actually disclosed to friends that that he or she was selected to be a juror in a case involving excessive force. That's how he or she described this case to friends of his of theirs. So that juror's already going in with this idea that this is an excessive force case.
Right. And they were excited about it.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's a she, right? I mean,
I don't know why I think it's a she. I don't know if
they went back and forth between she or he, and then they went she. So, like, whatever, whoever it is.
We're not sure if it's a male or female juror.
The foreperson.
Or a non-binary. I don't know.
So straight up lied.
Right.
Like, straight up lied to the court during voir dire.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah, and which is a violation of the rules of criminal justice. You cannot do that.
Yeah, they pulled, like, Twitter posts from her, right?
Mm-hmm.
About just some of her activism. I think she's been at protests.
They pulled quotes from this juror on a podcast. This juror was on a podcast and had some quotes from that podcast. Here, let me read those real quick. I'm going to bring up the page here with the quotes from the podcast. It's wild. Like, these things were said on a podcast, and she did not disclose any of these biases.
She told the court, "Yeah, I can be unbiased."
Yeah. So on the podcast, this juror said, and the thing that is happening in the United States is that it's clearly a society that is founded on racism and continues to be a racist society. This juror is completely woke, believes that the police are systemically racist, believes that America is racist, is friendly with BLM and other groups that are friendly with BLM. Juror went on this podcast to say, white people have a privilege. They're much less likely to encounter violence by the police, and that we can use that privilege to support movements for racial justice. And along with plenty of those conversations that were aided by movies and books, we also participated in some marches and protests where children got to experience standing up for racial justice. So this juror is admitting that they're part of protests against the police and against this racial inequality that she's viewing in law enforcement, or he. One exciting thing that I have seen happen since Black Lives Matter uprising and the uprising after the murder of George Floyd is so many more white moms who I know are reading and trying to understand, and they're doing that identity work. Always about identity.
Yeah.
And they're starting to have more conversations with their own children, and with I've seen some really surprising conversations of white moms calling out other white moms, and I don't want to promote a call out culture where, I'm more woke than you are. My daughter, when she was younger, I think it was second or third grade, she created a sign about police brutality. Okay, so if you have a second or third grader creating signs and art about police brutality, that is 100% being taught in the home. That a second or third grader is not just arriving on that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, so yeah, her daughter created a sign about police brutality, and then I don't know what that is. It must be like a misprint in here. I'm not sure what they're saying, but basically her daughter created this sign about police brutality and drew pictures of white officers shooting a black person. And so we live in a time, and maybe it's always been this time in the United States, but now we live in a time where children are seeing the physical effects of racism, and so they can see black people are incurring more violence than white people. So she said,
isn't true.
Right.
We've talked about this ad nauseum.
Right. So this juror, it does sound like she's a female, a mom.
Who's a foreperson.
Right. Who's a foreperson.
Which does mean something.
Is espousing these views publicly, and then during voir dire refuses to address and acknowledge her bias.
And she actually saw a juror answer one of the questions and be struck from. So they put that in their motion also. So basically, she sees a juror answer a question about having some type of bias, and that person's removed from the jury pool.
Right.
So she sees that happen, and then obviously she decides to not disclose this.
Right.
And she gets put on the jury.
Yeah. She was also a member of a organization called Showing Up for Racial Justice, which actively works to defund the police and end police murders, quote.
Okay.
So you have a foreperson who is blatantly biased against the police.
And not just the police, a white police officer, because Officer Lunsford is a white police officer.
Yep. Which shouldn't even matter.
It shouldn't matter, right. but it does in this case.
It does in this case.
Because she literally is saying it.
Right.
We're not putting that on her. Like we're not adding motives to her heart, right?
Right.
She literally is saying these things.
Right. So she's telling friends,
yes.
this is an excessive force case.
And she went on a podcast and said it.
Right. Now, that podcast, I don't know how long ago that was.
It doesn't matter.
No, you're right. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying, like, I don't think she was on that podcast after she was
for sure.
in the jury.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure she wasn't.
Right. But blatantly works against, blatantly violates rules of criminal procedure to get on the jury and have a effect and have a say on the outcome of this case, and is even the foreperson of that jury.
Right.
I mean, it's a strong, it's a strong motion.
I think it's pretty strong.
And
of course the prosecution's like, no, there's nothing to see here. It was a fair trial. He was found guilty. Like all the things that they always say.
I don't understand. I do not understand.
Well, I understand.
Right. I don't understand how you can be cleared back at work and then all of a sudden get.
Well, he was cleared by his department and the county investigators, right?
I think so, although I'm not sure if the local DA had cleared him yet, because I don't know if they had gotten the results of the toxicology report back yet. So I've heard two different things. But he was back on the job. He was back on the job. He was cleared by his department.
Well, it's interesting that they would put him back on if he was still being investigated.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that was, but either way, he had been cleared by, at the very least, his department and was back on the job. And it looked like, or he had been cleared by the local DA. And so I can't imagine being, and in this last interview that I saw from Lacey, his wife, she said that he was working and he calls her up just crying. And at first she thought, someone had died, and he just lays us on there. They're dropping charges on me. I cannot imagine.
Yeah, it's brutal.
I can't imagine that. So hopefully the hearing they have about this motion, the judge, they're asking for a new trial.
Yeah.
We're hoping and praying that Officer Brad Lunsford gets released from prison.
And he should have a fair trial.
Today. He should have a fair trial.
And
that was not a fair trial. So, hey, the final thing I want to talk about.
Okay.
It's like a terrible segue. but El Salvador prisons. So I went down the rabbit
dude.
trail, man.
You went nuts.
Rabbit hole, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So this all came out of. So did you see what Trump did?
Yeah.
With a bunch of illegal criminal gang members who are in the country.
TDA.
Yeah, they weren't even. I don't even think they were from El Salvador. I think they were from Venezuela or something like that.
Okay.
But he loads them up on using the 1798 wartime era Alien Enemies Act.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the thing. He's trying to use whatever he can to like get these
people out,
violent criminals out of our country. He's not using this for, some of the people ICE is picking up, but these violent criminals, these gang members, he used this to get them out of the country. So there is a huge fight right now between the Trump administration and the courts, because this judge in DC said, no, you got to bring them back. So they sent, I think it was over 200 illegal criminal gang members on a plane, had some sort of agreement with El Salvador and the president there, Bukele,
that he would take them in.
That he would take them in and take them to their big prison there, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So there was some sort of agreement there. They get them in the air, and a judge, while the plane is in the air, says, no, you got to bring them back to the United States, which I don't understand. I don't understand why we're fighting to keep bad guys in this country. I don't get it. I don't understand why, as a judge in DC, I don't even think it was a federal. Was it a federal? I guess it was a federal judge,
district court judge, I believe.
Yeah, is dropping this order. Whose daughter is part of some anti, ICE organization and has ties to all this crazy stuff. So the Trump administration is saying, no, by the time you got the order, they were in international waters and they're gone.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah.
So now there's this big ongoing argument.
What are you going to do? Take them out of the prison there and bring them back? That's not going to happen.
I just don't understand. I don't understand why we're fighting to keep criminals in this country. Why not?
So in reality, these guys were probably already in jail here in the United States. So they took them from jail to a plane to another jail in another country. That's what happened.
Right. And this all hit the fan because, so this happened back on Sunday, March 15th.
Okay.
Or Saturday, March 15th into Sunday, March 16th, when this flight happened. And it all hit the fan because there was then video coming out of El Salvador of these guys coming off the plane.
Yeah.
And they're all stripped down to shorts and t-shirts. They have to keep their heads down.
They're hog-tied.
They got they're all
they're cuffed in the front. They got
chains
on their ankles, and they're
all bent over, and they have to shuffle in, and then they're kneeled down. Their heads are shaved. All their facial hair is shaved off. All the guards have masks on.
Yeah.
And
it's an intense prison, man.
Yeah, and everyone's I don't understand. These are some of the most violent people. These gangs in El Salvador and this gang, I guess a lot of these gang members were out of Venezuela, like I said. But they, the types of things they're involved in are beheadings.
Yeah.
Chopping
evil
limbs off people, burning people.
Yeah.
Raping. That's the things they're involved in. They are extremely violent. And we're like, oh, what?
They have certain rights here.
They have certain rights. Yeah. I'm sorry. If that's the behavior you want to engage in, you should not be treated just like a normal citizen. I'm not saying you don't have rights, and I'm not saying you should be mistreated, but you're not. You're just shackled, as a criminal should be, and your head is shaved and your beard is shaved off. They do that when you go into the military. I don't
voluntary, but
I don't care.
I like it.
What right do you have to your hair and your beard when you go into prison?
We have this idea in America that prison is for rehabilitation. I think that is an aspect of it, but there is an aspect of punishment.
Well, and
there should be.
and it's punishment for rehabilitation. The focus is just on rehabilitation, no
that's what I'm saying.
punishment.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. El Salvador, it seems like it's a punishment.
Right. And so I came across this documentary then about this the prison, what's it called? CTEC? I can't remember the name of the prison.
I don't know.
But basically it's this huge prison they have where where President Bukele came into power in 2015, I think.
Okay.
And since then has just laid waste to the criminal gangs in El Salvador.
Nice.
So El Salvador, historically, in 2015, El Salvador was the most dangerous country in the world. Think about that. The most dangerous country in the world. They had 103 to 105 murders per 100,000 people. Okay. To put that in perspective, okay, USA is on average for the last many years 6 to 8 per 100,000 people. So you have a country that has 103 and 105 murders per
1,000 people.
100,000 people.
Per 100,000. Okay.
Okay. And the USA, which has some very dangerous areas, is 6 to 8 per 100,000. So it was the most dangerous country in the world. In 2024, that number in El Salvador fell to 2 per 100,000.
Wow.
El Salvador is now safer than the United States.
That's crazy.
When it
All
comes
because
to
he's
murder.
basically locking people up.
He is crushing.
Yeah.
You know,
They have capital punishment there?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they do or not.
You should Google it real quick.
But President Bukele is now in his second term. He's focused on public safety and using law enforcement and military to lay waste to the criminal element. His approval rating is 80 to 90% plus. I think I've read approval rating in certain polls like 93%. I mean, that's unheard of. So
What?
What's interesting is, what are you looking up?
Does El Salvador, I can't even say that.
Have the death penalty.
Have the death penalty. Oh my goodness.
Google doesn't want you to
know.
Dude. So I saw a real brief interview with the president, and he said, President Bukele, and he said when he first got office and they first started, they had one of the bloodiest days ever in El Salvador history when they first started.
Okay.
So
probably like good people too. Probably like law enforcement probably got whacked.
I don't know. I don't know what he meant, but they had to push through that. What I find so interesting about it is the way El Salvador is doing things is making a huge difference. And, you know, President Bukele, you know, obviously understands that his role as president of that country, his primary role is the safety and security and peace of the people in his country.
That's right.
And so he went after it hardcore. Now, has he gotten some pushback, and are there some questions about
human rights
and
the treatment of people? Yeah.
Who's getting arrested? Yes, there has been. And it appears that there have been some people that have been arrested that shouldn't have been arrested. And the way they do things there is a little different. You get arrested if they think you're involved with or supporting any of the gangs there, they will arrest you, and you can sit in jail for up to 2 years while they figure out the case against you. So they can kind of work backwards. They can be like, hey, we believe this person is involved in gang activity, arrest you, and then we'll create, for the next 2 years, we can create a case. So some people have been in jail for 2 years and then get released. What's interesting is that's not the norm.
Sure.
Okay. And so I think, and we fall into this so many times in this country where we look at outliers and bad things that happen in the course of good things trying to be carried out. And we say, well, because this bad thing happened, we shouldn't do any of this good over here. For sure, if you're arresting the wrong person and holding them, you need to address that. You need to look at that. You need to, on a case by case basis, do your best not to not to do that. And but you shouldn't stop doing what
Right.
you're doing. And like I said, 80 to 90% plus approval rating in the country right now, because kids are like, they were talking to some kids who weren't going to school. They
'Cause
wouldn't
it
go
was
to
too
school. It
dangerous.
was too dangerous to even walk to school. And now, kids are going back to school. Like, people are, having soccer matches, football matches. People are able to be out on the streets and
Right.
like walk freely and, crazy. I'm like, we can learn something from this guy for sure. From the what they're doing there, since they started this press, over 20,000 criminal gang members fled the country. Okay, so where do you
That
think
makes
some of
sense,
them went?
yeah.
Here, of course. Some have gone into Mexico and other countries, obviously. But CCOT, that's the name of the prison. So they created this prison, this mega prison. And I think these are things we can learn from El Salvador. So this prison is for the worst of the worst.
Okay.
So they have 80 plus people to a cell, 80 plus gang members to a cell.
Okay.
They mix gangs in the cell.
Oh, interesting.
They mix gangs in the cell. No mattresses or blankets, just hard surfaces to sleep on. They have a tub that all 80 of them share to clean themselves and bathe. They have one toilet that all of them share. When you are entering into the area where CCOT is, this giant prison, they shut down all cell phone service.
Okay.
And the reason they do that is because these guys are so dangerous. They don't want them to have any ability to reach the outside world to set up hits, murders, rebellions, attempts to get them to escape. They don't know. So you go in, once you hit the checkpoint at the 2 miles out, your cell phone stops working.
Interesting.
The press was going in, all their cell phones would stop working. They were jamming all of them.
Wow.
So this is so, I love this. I love everything about this. The other thing the country did is they had these large cemeteries that were basically, the people buried in these cemeteries were gang members. Did you watch this documentary?
No,
I sent
I
you?
need to watch
Yeah.
it though. Sounds
It's
interesting.
like an hour long. It's interesting. Definitely like a push towards human rights being violated.
Okay.
Like there's an agenda in it, but so a lot of these cemeteries are filled with gang members, and all the headstones on these gang members' graves like have gang symbols. Shout out to gang members, shout out to the gang. Like, they're all filled with things that are related to the gang. So they sent people into these cemeteries and destroyed all the headstones, wiped them out.
Wow.
Said, we are not having.
So not part of the prison. This is just
This is
outside
outside in the country. They're said, we're not having memorials to gangbangers in these cemeteries, and they destroyed all of them.
Interesting.
And I was looking at that. I was like, okay, compare that to what the USA is doing right now. We're taking people like George Floyd, who, I'm not saying he deserved to die, but I also don't believe he was murdered. And he also did not live his life as someone we should lionize and memorialize.
Yeah.
And we're creating memorials for him. We're lionizing him. He's painted on the side of buildings in cities. Like, we're lifting him up. We're creating these memorials to him. And El Salvador is like, no,
we're crushing it.
You lived your life in a way that brought danger, violence, rape, beheadings, like all this evil on our country. We're wiping out your memory. We're wiping out your name.
So you'll be forgotten.
You'll be forgotten. And I'm just like, we can learn something from this. We can learn something from this. So yeah, I went down. I'll put a link to the little documentary. What's like an hour long? I'll put a link in the episode notes.
Okay.
But yeah, I found it so interesting, the difference between what El Salvador is doing and what our country is doing when it comes to criminals and what they're engaged in. Because people are like, oh my word, 80 people to a cell. They're all crammed in there.
Okay.
don't be an
It's
evil
probably
person.
it's obviously a huge deterrent,
Right.
which is why they don't have the problems that they once did.
Right.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
probably have a better
think about-
society.
Think about that. 2015, 103 to 105 murders per 100,000. 2024, less than 2 per 100,000.
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
9
always,
years.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have
Evil.
You're always going to have it. We can't legislate it out, right? But to control it, there has to be harsh punishment and hopefully rehabilitation. I think people can be rehabilitated.
Sure.
But I think there's an aspect of punishment. I think shaving of heads and beards is a good thing, depending on the crime. I mean, if you're a DUI, I mean, petty theft, like all that stuff.
What is the point of discipline? What is the point of discipline is a better word. What is the point of punishing or disciplining your child?
Yeah, to get them in the right direction.
To get them in the right direction, to change behavior. It's not punishment for punishment's sake. The point is to change behavior.
And because we live in a world that you can be and do anything you want. That's just not true.
Right.
It's just not true.
Yeah.
The evils of men will come out if you allow that.
Right. And again, this CCOT is for like their worst criminals.
Yeah.
Like they're the guys that, have their full faces and gang tattoos and stuff.
Their identity is a gang member.
That's who they're identifying.
They live for
right.
the brutalization of other citizens.
The lower level criminals in El Salvador, they're putting to work. So like you're convicted of a crime, a lower level crime, you're doing work on the infrastructure of El Salvador.
I like it. Building roads.
You're
Hospitals.
you're doing and working on things that benefit the citizens.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. So again, they've gotten some pushback on the human rights complaints that some innocent people are being arrested. And I get it. You don't want that. You can't have that. But I just think it's interesting that as Americans, we tend to focus on small percentage, tiny fraction things and then want to make that the rule.
Right.
Like a perfect example is if we go back to what we were talking about with the whole trans police car. That's like a very small part of the population is trans. Very small part.
Oh, yeah.
Or identify as trans. A very small part of the population even agrees with that ideology and would support that or promote that. But yet that's what we want to elevate. That's what we want to explode. That's what we want to
make the big
promote.
Deal.
That's what we want to make the big deal. That's not how it should be. Like, I get it. Obviously, you don't want to arrest innocent people. You should do everything in your power not to arrest innocent people. But you can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and saying like, well, you guys arrested an innocent person, so we're going to shut this down.
Yeah, we're going to leave all the gang members alone. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like this judge who is saying, so President Trump is using everything in his power to try to get violent gang members out of our country. He's using a Aliens Act from 1798 to get them out of our country. And my understanding of that act is the Supreme Court said that the president has full power to use that act to expel alien enemies out of our country, and no court can tell him that he can't use that act. All right, so we have a president who's using something that's on the books that was created by our founding fathers to expel evil out of our country, and we have a judge being like, no, that's not right. We need to keep him here. You stepped out of bounds. How?
Yeah. So do you think that maybe the Trump administration should list who they, because I think that's part of the problem. They haven't said who these people were that they, we're hearing they're rapists, they're murderers, they're gang members, but like who they actually are. Like release that.
Sure.
Yeah. I even think release that to the court. Or release it publicly, whatever.
Release it publicly.
Yeah, these are who we...
Yeah.
There's nothing to hide. That's what
Yeah.
If you're doing the right thing, if President Trump and his administration thinks he's doing the right thing, I would say the best thing to do is to release who you sent away.
Right.
Who you sent away, what they did.
Right. Yeah. And and maybe they're doing kind of what El Salvador does too, is they do a lot of it based on tattoos, because all these guys have certain tattoos. So if you have a guy have certain gang tattoos on their face, maybe they're just basing on that, like, but yeah, what is there is no issue with releasing that publicly and saying, hey, these are the reasons that we sent these people out of here.
I think just being more open about it would be better.
And we're talking like between 200 and 300.
It shouldn't be that hard. 200
or 300 guys. Like he's not shipping thousands and thousands of illegals over to El Salvador to go into the
this max
security prison. He's sending people over there. And El Salvador, they're the guy in charge of this push to eradicate these criminal gangs out of the country. The intelligence over there is wild. So I'm sure that Trump and his administration, his staff, Homeland Security, FBI, DOJ, were working with these other countries to identify these. They
know who's who.
They're not sending over like a mom and a kid. Like, they're sending over all males who are obviously involved in criminal gang activity.
I like it.
So yeah, put it out. Put their names out with their pictures, and hey, this is the crimes they've been convicted of.
Yeah,
they were in prison for this reason or whatever. I mean,
it just saves face also.
Right.
And then, really, if you're a person who doesn't like that's happening, it's going to be hard to find people to agree with you.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of Americans want violent criminals gone, like illegals.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I just don't understand how long we have to continue to see crime committed at the hands of illegals to be like, maybe this great experiment that the Biden administration did wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't. You have President Bukele, who is obsessed, whether you agree with all his tactics or not, he's obsessed with providing a safer, better environment for his citizens. Okay.
Which is the role of the executive.
It should be the role of the government to provide safety and protection
for its citizens.
Okay. So you have that compared to a president in President Biden who opened the borders wide, who made it possible for people to flood this country that we do not know who they are. Many of them violent, many of them engaged in criminal activity in other countries. Many of them, we know for a fact that I think it was Venezuela purposely released people out of their prisons to come here.
Yeah.
Okay. That's evil.
Yeah.
It's
a dereliction of duty.
Yeah. That's who
I would say it's treasonous.
I think it is treasonous. You are literally doing the exact opposite of what you should be doing as a leader of the country, which is protecting the citizens. Instead, you're allowing wolves to come in unabated into our country.
We complicate this so much because if you have a property, a house and a yard,
right,
and someone comes on your property and sets up camp,
mm-hmm.
you're going to have a problem with that. Everybody in America is going to have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Almost everyone. Maybe not everyone.
Well, was it Martha's Vineyard?
Yeah.
Dude, that was hilarious. Who was that? Was that
DeSantis?
Cruz or DeSantis?
I think it was Florida and Texas both.
Okay. They sent the illegals to Martha's Vineyard.
Just dropped
all these people who are like, we want open borders, let everybody in.
Yeah.
And then they get up there and within a day or two,
oh yeah, they were gone.
All the residents lined up and they were like hugging them and sending them away.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. We don't want you here.
Yeah, I mean we overcomplicate it. Like
sure.
I get it. It's a big country.
Right.
Right. And I think having people immigrate to America is a good thing. Let's know who they are.
Right.
Let's know who they are, and they should have something to give, and they should be loyal.
Right.
They should be loyal to the United States of America. If they're not, and they have nothing to give, why are we taking them?
Right. It's a country that has welcomed people from every nation since it was created, but there's a process to it, and the
process should continue to get better.
Right. You're absolutely right, and the process is spit on by opening the borders. The people that have come here legally and have taken the steps to become citizens have worked hard to become citizens.
They become American. is what happens. They become
Yes.
American.
They're like, I want to be an American.
Yeah, I want to eat apple pie. I
wanna
want to celebrate the 4th of July. I want to,
I want to do it the right way. I want to
see
take
fireworks.
the steps. Right.
I want to jump in a pool and listen to, I don't know, listen to God Bless America. You know what I mean?
Right. But
I want a hot dog.
It spits in the face of those people.
Yeah, it does.
To be like, no, we're going to open the borders and just let people do whatever they want. That's who I often think of. I think about the people, the people who have, come to this country and done what they need to do to become citizens, and then looking at what the Biden administration does, I'm like, that has to hurt. That has to hurt.
I would think.
I mean, it would bother me. It would bother me as someone who did it the right way and came the right way and did those things I did, wanted to become an American citizen with the understanding like, hey, I live in a free country that is safe and protected. And now I have a president who's just completely opened the floodgates for millions of unvetted people to come in that we do not know. And that we do now know many of them are very violent and should not be here and do not have good good plans while they're here. So anyways, what are your thoughts, Gary? I thought you came in a little...
What do you mean?
Yeah, a little weird this morning.
You think?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe that's because I chastised you on time.
I know. I was 30 minutes off of when we were supposed to start. That's on me, though.
Yeah.
That's on me.
It is what it is. So
we got to talk about another time. We got to talk about like the people driving around pointing out ICE people. You hear about that?
No, I haven't.
So there's like bands of people like pointing out ICE officials in their cars. So if they're like in your neighborhood, they're like letting people know, like, yeah, this is got like kind of doxing them or like, putting their stuff up there. So I think that'd be interesting. I'm probably not going to do any research on it. You'll probably do some research on it, and then we'll talk about it. I think that's
this is not the podcast of promises made, promises kept.
No, it's not.
This is the podcast of Gary says stuff, and then Anthony either has to follow through or it doesn't.
Or it just doesn't happen.
The name change is coming too.
That's
people.
coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
We're working on it. Gary came up with some. Well, you did. You came up with some AI art that we're.
Oh man, we got a guy fixing
it.
It's gonna be nice.
I'm pretty excited about it. I'm hoping that it drops here soon and we can get
it's got to be soon.
The new podcast art out and the new name. 2 Cops 1 Call.
Like, post, repost.
Yeah, listen.
Comment.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I throw a lot of shorts up there from our episodes.
One guy that subscribes, he's like, my phone is blowing up. And I was like, yeah, that's my guy, Anthony. He goes, I think I'm going to have to like mute the notifications. He's like, I like watching your stuff, but like my phone's blowing up.
Yeah.
I like it though.
I should probably have a little more of a schedule or something.
Oh, you can't, dude.
I don't know. Now I have AI helping me create shorts. Dude, it's a whole thing, man. It's a whole thing.
You're crushing it.
I'm not crushing it, but yeah, we're a good follow on YouTube. Follow us on YouTube. We'll try to I'll throw some updates out.
What are the most views that we've got on a video?
I'm not going to do that. I think that's dumb.
All right. Okay.
Go watch our stuff. If you're concerned about it, you don't even watch our stuff.
That's true.
Go watch it. Then you can see how many views there are.
But are they legit numbers?
Are you a subscriber to our podcast? Get on YouTube and subscribe, Gary. You don't need.
I should probably do it.
Yeah, just subscribe, and then you're gonna see the shorts. You're gonna see what's putting out there. Then you can like house me, be like, "That's dumb, Anthony. You're an idiot. Why would you put that out there?" Look at my red face. Why are you putting my red face in a YouTube short?
I'm not real big in like the comments. I don't like to comment on things.
I'm not asking you to comment. I'm asking you to subscribe. You're here telling the masses, subscribe to us.
A lot of people like subscribing.
But
I live this stuff.
The co-host isn't even subscribed to the show.
I live this stuff, Anthony.
I don't know. Piss poor.
Find somebody else, dude. Find somebody else. There's no one like me, Anthony. You couldn't find.
I couldn't replace you.
Uncomfortable seat.
I couldn't replace. Go buy us new chairs.
Oh man.
You're retired. You're making.
Oh yeah.
You're making mad money.
It, yeah.
Buy some new chairs.
Government takes all.
Buy
of my
us a
money.
bigger table.
Government takes all my money.
Here, don't be a
I'm done.
complainer. A lot of people complain about things, but they don't have ways to fix it. Have a way to fix it. You're gonna come on.
Dude, you're really coming at me here, bro.